Okay, this is going to have to go very quickly because I have to go pick up my kid. Sorry. So if I'm talking a little quickly or quicker than you like, hey, that's why you've got the pause button. So that's why this is more awesomer. This is Chapter 14, Section 4. We're talking about nationalism in India and Southwest Asia, and that is a horrible map. I apologize. But the big yellow thing is the sun. No, sorry. The big yellow thing is India. That was for you, Sebastian. All right, Indian nationalism grows. Two parties. There's two parties in India, and they're all looking for independence. There's the Congress Party, which is mostly the Hindus, and the Muslim League, which, mostly the Muslims. Both want to be independent of Britain. And during World War I, India was one of those places where a lot of people joined up in active service, including Gandhi, who joined in as a medical personnel in World War I, trying to hopefully get the mother country to realize that they are ready to govern themselves and they are civilized and all the wonderful things. Again, completely discounting the economic reasons that the mother country had for hanging on to them. After World War I, many of these groups start agitating for more independence, more rights, more freedoms. The British government promises to allow self-government after the war. They don't deliver on this, and you get a lot of resentment. Of course, some of those people take resentment to violence, and those few people who, create violent situations are the ones that prompt the British to pass the Rowlett Acts in 1919, which are actually really, discriminatory laws in which, Indians weren't allowed to gather in large places. Now, this is Indians in India not allowed to gather in their own country. Okay, so that's, difficult. So these Rowlett Acts obviously are very, very tough to bear for a lot of Indians. In spring of 1919, you have about 10,000 Indians that all gather in one place at this sort of festival in the city of Amritsar. Okay, Amritsar. And it's peaceable. It's totally peaceable. There are men, women, and children, but because it is, thousands of people, the British freak out. There's nationalist leaders there, and the military commander at Amritsar completely flips out, thinks that this is not a festival, that they are protesting, that they're ignoring the ban on public meetings, that they're holding a meeting, and that things are going to get out of control. And so he orders the troops to open fire, and these people are slaughtered. You could see down in the lower left-hand corner, that's a well, and that was, just horror stories. People jumping in the well to avoid getting shot, or throwing their children in the well to avoid getting shot, but then more and more people jumping up on top of them and getting crushed and suffocating and drowning. It's just, ew, badness. Okay, 400 people are killed, 1,200 are wounded. Let me remind you again, this is children in this crowd, and this event is called the Amritsar Massacre, and this literally sort of the last straw for a lot of Indians. One of those people is a guy named Mohandas Gandhi. He is one of the leaders of the independence movement. He is Hindu. His family is wealthy and well off, and he has gone to school in England and trained to become a lawyer. And he's practicing law in South Africa, and actually why he is there in South Africa, he buys a first-class ticket on the train because he's rich and he can. And as he's practicing law in South Africa, why won't you turn off? He takes the train, and the train, someone on the train complains, and even though he has a first-class ticket, he is physically, literally lifted up by the seat of his pants, because he's not a big dude, and tossed off the train because he is a person of color. So he realizes that if he can be treated like this, what must it be like for native South Africans? Okay, native Africans who are treated like this in their own country, which leads to the next realization that he is indeed treated like a second-class citizen in his own country of India by the British. And that leads him to return to India and start this independence movement. But the way he does it is different than everybody else. He uses civil disobedience, simply not cooperating. They tell you you can't sit in this park, you go sit in this park. They tell you to move, you politely respond, I cannot. They beat the crap out of you, you take it. And that is the hardest part about non-cooperation. You disobey, but you do it civilly. And you do it only against the laws which you believe are unfair and, discriminatory. Okay, so it's not like you are going to politely go mug somebody. That's not civil disobedience. You are going to the place where they tell you you can't go, and you are going to stay there. And when they arrest you, you're going to go to jail. And when they beat you, you're going to quietly take it, and that's civil disobedience. In 1920, the Congress Party backs his idea. The next step to his thing is urging boycotts, and that's addressing the economic issue or the economic facet as to why the British were so desperate to hang on to India no matter what, and no matter, what sort of horrible things that they had to do, or canals they had to dig, or wars they had to fight in order to keep their, quote, jewel in the crown. And that was the massive economic benefits they got from keeping India. So he tells the Indians, hey, stop growing them cotton. Stop growing them tea. Stop growing them, anything that we grow them. Stop going to their schools. Stop paying their taxes. Don't vote in their elections. Stop trying to be British. Be Indian. And he tells them, don't buy their stuff. Don't sell them things. And their refusal to buy British cloth cuts into the textile industry. And that's why you see Gandhi, and he's always wearing this traditional sort of cloth drape thing, because he made that cloth himself, and that's what he encourages all Indians to do. Okay? Make it yourself. Do not give them a dime. Remove all economic reasons that they have for being there. And it does... Whoa, someone's screaming. It's creepy. It does indeed bite into the profits of Great Britain. Okay, more strikes and demonstrations. They have thousands of striking Indians in jail. The jails are severely overcrowded. The factories are slowing down. And then in 1930, he organizes the protest of the Salt Acts. These were laws that the British passed that forced the Indians to buy salt from the government. Now, you might think, well, who cares, okay? But you actually, especially in warmer climates, you must have salt to survive. And in everywhere but the United States, where we have too much salt in everything, you have to have a certain amount of salt every single day so that your body can process the water that you take in. And so if your government is controlling that salt, then, it's literally controlling your ability to live. The Indian National Congress, the Congress Party, and Gandhi lead this salt march, a 250-mile walk to the sea where they collect seawater. And you see it there, they all are with their cups collecting seawater, and they, let it evaporate, and then boom, you have salt. So by simply making their own salt, they have broken the law. Now, along the way, this 240-mile walk, they are beaten, stones are thrown at them. Okay, it's brutal, but there are several Western photographers that are there, and they are taking pictures, and this gains Gandhi and his movement worldwide support. Britain grants limited self-rule. So in 1935, Parliament finally was like, oh, let's cut them free. They are, too much drama. And the Government of India Act, the act gives India local self-government and some election reforms, but it does nothing to calm the rising tensions between the Muslims and the Hindus, which if you do some research, the British themselves were stirring up, because you had several Parliament members saying to a lot of the members of the Muslim party, well, hey, when the Hindu's in charge, do you think they're going to be kind to you? You're a minority here. Okay, so they're sort of stirring that up themselves. So let's talk about Southwest Asia. Let's talk Turkey. If you remember from the video that we watched with, about the Armenian genocide, that after the fall of the Sultanate, the Ottoman Sultanate, you have the new modernizing republic that, creates a separation between church and state and splits government from religion, modernizes Turkey. This is that government where they sort of change everything. They change the language, they change the dress, they change the way the government works, and then they sort of look that, you know, everybody else and say, don't look backwards, don't look back at what we did, we didn't do that, don't talk about it ever. Okay, so that is this government that they're talking about. Also, in the same part of the world, if you can imagine, the Ottoman Empire used to stretch all the way from modern-day Turkey to essentially almost right up to the gates of modern-day Egypt. So when the Ottoman Empire collapses and Turkey founds itself, it is maybe a quarter of the size of the Ottoman Empire. So what's happening in all those other lands that used to be part of the Ottoman Empire? Well, they're all trying to vie for control. And if you remember from our game of, you know, dividing things up and negotiating the Treaty of Versailles, there was that little piece about mandates. Well, Britain fought really hard to get those mandates in these areas, especially in the area of what used to be known as Persia. And the British did control Persia after World War I. It was one of their mandates, and they were doing the sort of, oh yes, we're getting you ready for civilization. We're trying to civilize you so you can be ready to govern yourself. But in essence, what they were doing was trying to pump out as much oil as they could, because there was some small naval secretary dude who kept saying, I'm telling you people, this oil stuff, it's going to be a big deal. And his name was Winston Churchill. And turns out he was pretty much right in everything he nearly ever did. But he was the one who was saying, yes, no, I swear, engines are going to run on oil, not coal. It's going to be the big new thing. So during this time, the Persian people are trying to push the British out, and they force a nationalist movement, and what they get is a dude named Reza Shah Pahlavi, and he takes power and begins modernization, basically sets himself up as a little mini sultan. That's not going to last too long. We'll wait until the 70s to get into that. And continuing westward as we get towards Egypt, in 1932, the last sort of chunk of what used to be the Ottoman Empire is, you know, what today we know as Saudi Arabia. And there is a guy whose last name is Saud, who actually unifies a lot of those Arabic tribes, those Arabian tribes. Arabian Nights. That just runs through my head. Yours too. I know. Maybe because I went and saw the Aladdin and Jasmine stage show with my kid. Okay? Whatever. So he unifies those tribes and essentially unifies them all under his control and his family's control, and names the country after himself. This is Arabia, owned by the Sauds. It's Saudi Arabia. He modernizes life in some ways, but keeps a very sort of strict Islamic society. No effort to bring democracy. He owns the country. He owns everything, and his family owns everything. So if you are a member of the Saud family, then you are set for life, which is why there was some random cousin of the Saud family who had tons of money, who became a very religious extremist and took his tons of money and went to Afghanistan and joined Al-Qaeda. I'm sure you can figure out who that was. All right, so again, rising demand for oil leads to exploration in Southwest Asia. When they discover oil in the 1920s and 1930s, it brings new foreign investment, and the Western nations try to dominate this region to keep control of that oil production up until, I don't know, now? Yeah. You know, this, I told you that these post-World War I years would be sowing the seeds for the issues that we see today in the Middle East, and there you have it. And that is the notes. Yeah.